I work at a board game store. Every day is usually calm and uneventful. I get to stack shelves and occasionally play Magic or D&D with my customers. Sometimes I even fall asleep during my shift. But one day, as I was headed to the alley to empty the trash, I saw something that still makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up to this day. You have to understand, I live in a tiny town. Crime was something I'd never witnessed before. But that day, suddenly, there it was. A couple of guys had two girls locked in a tight grip, one of them trying to wrestle the girls' bags from them. The girls tried to kick and fight, but the guys were simply much larger than they were. I was so scared and so in shock that I felt my legs turn to jelly. I knew in my head I had to help. I had to do something. But my body wouldn't move. Until, out of nowhere, I felt a surge of strength swell from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head. Suddenly, I knew exactly what to do. Hey there, I'm Denver. This is the story of my rise as a martial arts master. Think you have an awesome story idea? Comment it down below and like the ones you think are interesting. You never know, your story may be the next one we post. Alright, now back to the story. The change all started one afternoon as I was biking home from my job. I saw this guy rummaging around in the trash. He looked pale, thin, and worse for wear, so I decided I'd see if I could help in any way. When I asked him that, he refused.
That's a very kind offer, young man, but I'm doing well.
You sure, Pops? I could get you a cup of coffee at least, or a sandwich. You look like you haven't eaten in a while.
Thank you, son. I'm fine, I promise you.
Take this, at least. I rummaged around in my bag for the brown paper bag that still had the apples I never managed to get to during lunch. The man, hesitant, took it and smiled at me.
You're very kind, but I can't take this without giving you something in return. Here, take it.
He handed me a pair of old but very nice sneakers. Now, I wasn't one to reject shoes, as I love getting sneakers. But it felt very wrong taking anything from a man who was clearly homeless. So I looked down at the shoes, thought about what to say as not to offend him, and then turned to say that it was a generous offer. Unfortunately, I must decline. But the man was gone. Disappeared. As if he had never even been there at all. I looked behind the dumpster, around the wide expanse of the street and the neighboring park, but the man had impossibly vanished into thin air. So I simply biked back home. Nothing out of the ordinary happened to me for the couple times I wore the sneaks in the following weeks. Until that faithful day when I witnessed two girls in danger. A sudden wind blew that kicked up the pile of newspapers in the alley, and then I felt that strange electricity that shot up through me, and in the blink of an eye my feet moved on their own. My hands flowed through the air without me even knowing. In my head, I could see someone else doing the very same movements. But in front of me, my hands mimicked the exact same sequence even though I knew it wasn't me. And with those moves, I was able to quickly disarm and neutralize the evil guys. Did I just suddenly learn martial arts? I was still reeling from the surreal feeling of seeing my entire body move without my instruction, but the girls were already all over me. They hugged me and thanked me as their attackers ran away in fear. And then I realized they were twins. Suddenly, memories came flooding back and I was back in grade school. Alia? Sansa?
Wait, you know us?
It's me! It's Denver! Remember the dork who cried when I heard you guys were moving away?
Whoa! D? Is that really you? Oh wow! You've grown so much! You look so cute now! Well, you were cute back then too. Not to mention impressive! What were those moves?
Those, just basic self-defense stuff.
Well, you better teach us. Now we're back in town, we should definitely hang.
And they weren't kidding. It was almost impossible to go anywhere without the twins wanting to tag along. I guess because I rescued them, they got attached to me. Not that I'm complaining. I've been in love with Sansa and Alia since we were 8. Thing was, they too got hit by puberty hard, and they were smoking hot. It was so distracting when I was at work and they'd pop by the store just to hang around. Even my fellow nerds, who are usually totally focused on their board games, just sat around to look at the twins. In a matter of days, news of the hot twins that hung out at the place spread amongst the dork community. And that next weekend, I got to my shift and was overwhelmed by how many pimply boys were trying to fit themselves in the tiny store. I swear, I'd never seen that place so packed. And all they did was mill around and wait for the twins to come visit. I eventually had to tell them to go home if they weren't gonna buy anything or play some games. It was so much fun spending a lot of my days with the girls. When we were younger, I was so uncool that I never thought I'd ever get to be friends with them. I'm still pretty uncool, but now I spend most afternoons with the 2 girls I like the most in the world. We would walk to the corner ice cream shop after I finished my shift, and we'd go catch a movie or just skip rocks by the river and talk about the most random of things. Turned out, we had more in common than I imagined. During one of those afternoons by the river, we saw those guys again. The same ones who tried to steal from the twins. Only this time, they brought backup. 10 of them surrounded us before we could even run or call for help. No warning, they just attacked me. But before they could reach me, the world began to flow in slow motion. And that one breath that I took, I saw every single hand and fist that was headed my way. And then, I saw that movie in my mind again. This time, it was a girl, and she moved like flowing water. She dodged multiple attackers, and then, in a flurry of her palms, all her enemies were thrown back. I opened my eyes, and in the few milliseconds that it took for my attackers to reach me, I recreated all the moves I saw in my mind's eye. And the outcome was exactly as I saw that girl do. One by one, I parried their attacks, and with my open palm, I struck them, and they flew away like rag dolls. I picked up a stick and a broken umbrella that was lying by the riverbed, and with them, my body performed every single strike that the girl in my head did in real time. The gangsters who kept getting up and coming back at me were struck by the sticks that I somehow wielded as if I was some sort of dual-wielding Grand Master, until they all stayed down, begging for mercy. I never understood why they kept coming after Alia and Sansa, but then the girls explained that the gangsters were trying to kidnap them ever since they learned that the twins' family had gotten super rich. As they were explaining that, I heard someone run down from the street, and I was prepared for more fighting when the guy raised his arms up in a surrender. He was a bystander who had seen the fight, and he was so impressed by what he saw that he gave me his card. It turned out that guy was some big-shot Hollywood scout who was passing through our town and had his car broke down. It was an insane coincidence that he caught me doing some fancy fight moves. So, after directing him and his crew to the nearest mechanic, he made sure to remind me to call him if I ever wanted to work in the movies. Me, a small-town country boy and a nerd to boot, work in Hollywood? Of course I said yes! I didn't understand the weird ability I gained whenever I wore those strange sneakers, but I figured it out eventually. It happened a few times more when I moved to LA, and I was able to notice that it only happened when I had the shoes on. And I also noticed that the people I was seeing were, well, me. In some parallel universes. Okay, I didn't just figure that part out. While I was in that state, I call it the bridging. When I was bridging one time, the one version of me I connected with was a Kali master, and he was able to see me when I was tapping into his skills. He pulled me out of this dimension and took me to his. He explained everything. He said that there were millions of versions of everyone in millions of multiverses. And some people like me, who were gifted with a special item that helped bridge those universes, could tap into every single version of myself. And with that, comes the abilities those versions of me had. Some of them were cool skills like having photographic memory or insane martial arts skills. Others weren't as cool. In one universe, I was a bratty, spoiled kid whose only notable skill was being able to burp the alphabet. I totally used every useful skill I could find in the multiverse to my advantage. I took the Hollywood job and started working as a fight choreographer and a martial arts consultant in some big movies. I was still the poor, introverted me. But thanks to my multiverse counterparts, I was able to have a pretty cool job. Not only that, Alia and Sansa became my girlfriends. They decided they didn't want one of them losing out on being my girlfriend, so they agreed to share me. Isn't that just something? Who'd have thought? Nerdy, plain, unpopular me. With two rich, beautiful twins in Hollywood. And soon enough, with all the movie jobs I was landing, I too became rich and popular. And now, Sansa, Alia, and I are married.